All right, let's talk about a threat that's completely morphed from a digital nuisance into a massive, global, multi-billion-dollar criminal industry. I'm talking about ransomware. The game has totally changed, and by the end of this, you're going to understand the new rules of engagement and, more importantly, how to build a much stronger defense. We spend so much time building these digital fortresses, right? Trying to keep all the bad stuff out. But what if the biggest danger isn't some battering ram at the gate, but a key that's already been handed over from someone on the inside? It just takes one weak password, one careless click, and suddenly every wall you've built just disappears. That's the new front line in this battle.
So, just to make sure we're all starting from the same place, let's do a quick level set on what we actually mean when we say ransomware.
Honestly, the best way to think about it is digital kidnapping. Some malicious software gets onto your network and it basically scrambles all your important data into an unreadable mess. Then it holds the only key to unscramble it hostage. The goal is simple: create so much pressure, so much chaos, that you feel like you have no choice but to pay up.
But here's the thing, and this is the most critical shift you need to understand. Just locking up files? That's old news. Ransomware has evolved into this incredibly sophisticated criminal enterprise with a brutal and, frankly, a much more effective playbook. The whole strategy has fundamentally changed. The old model was simple, right? Lock the files, demand the money. But the modern approach, it's a multi-stage assault. See, attackers don't just lock your data anymore. No, the first thing they do is steal a copy of it. And that one change creates all these new layers of leverage, starting with this nasty little tactic called double extortion. Because they steal your data before they encrypt it, they have a whole new threat. Even if you have perfect backups and can restore everything, they can just turn around and threaten to leak all your sensitive info, your customer lists, your financial records, all over the internet. Some even add a third layer, a DDoS attack, which just floods your systems and knocks you completely offline, adding even more pressure to pay.
Next up, the business model itself has become, well, professional. It's called Ransomware as a Service, or RaaS. Think of it like a franchise. Expert developers create the malware and then they just lease it out to less skilled criminals for a cut of the profits. This has made it so much easier for people to get into the game. And it's why we saw a flood over 124 distinct attack groups in 2025 alone. And of course, technology is making the bad guys smarter. They're now using AI to write way more convincing phishing emails, the kind that are really, really hard to spot. They're using it to automate their attacks and even to get past language barriers. It just makes their whole operation faster, more efficient, and a whole lot more dangerous. And finally, there's this one. And honestly, this trend is probably the most alarming of all. What if the attacker doesn't even have to hack their way in? Ransomware groups are now actively trying to recruit insiders. They're straight up offering money to employees who are disgruntled or maybe just in a tough spot financially, asking them for the keys to the kingdom. This completely changes the human element of these attacks. Okay, so we've seen how the threat has evolved and gotten way more complex. Now, let's look at the real-world damage. The numbers from 2025 really paint a stark picture of what we're up against. Get this. Over 7,200 organizations were publicly named as victims in 2025. And that's not just a number. It represents a 45% jump in a single year. To put that in perspective, that's like 145 new victims getting posted to dark web leak sites every single week. And this isn't a problem for just one type of business. Manufacturing actually tops the list of targets. But the truth is, no industry is safe. Attackers go where the data is valuable and where they think defenses might be a little weak, hitting everyone from healthcare to education. It's a huge misconception that only the giant corporations are at risk. In fact, the data shows the exact opposite. 2/3 of all ransomware attacks are aimed at businesses with fewer than 500 employees. Why? Because they're often seen as easier targets, with fewer security resources to fight back. And the cost? It is just staggering. And it's so much more than just the ransom itself. You have to think about the cost of being completely shut down for days, maybe weeks, the price of rebuilding your systems from scratch, the legal fees, and the long-term damage to your reputation. For a lot of businesses, an attack like this is truly a company-ending event. Okay, that's the problem. It's complex, it's growing, and it is incredibly expensive. So what on earth is the solution? Well, there's no single magic bullet here.
The key is a modern, layered defense plan that's all about building resilience. This right here is the modern defense playbook. It starts with something called zero trust. It's a philosophy, really. You never trust. You always verify every single user and device. It means you absolutely have to enforce phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication to make stolen passwords useless. You've got to be disciplined about patching your systems to close those security holes. And critically, you need immutable backups. That means backups the attackers can't mess with or delete. And finally, you have to train your people and have a response plan you've actually practiced, because technology alone will never, ever be enough.
And I just want to pause on this point for a second because it's so important. It is not enough to just have backups. You have to regularly test your ability to actually restore from them. I'm serious. If you can't get your data back when the pressure is on and everything is on fire, then your backup isn't a real defense. It's just a security blanket. Now let's talk about the worst case scenario. You do everything right, but somehow an attack still gets through. What do you do in those first few critical moments? Your first move is always containment. Unplug infected machines from the network immediately. You have to stop the bleeding. Then activate your incident response plan and preserve all the evidence. And call for help. There's a key stat here. 63% of victims who got law enforcement involved early on actually avoided paying the ransom. Whatever you do, do not try to handle this alone. So if there's one crucial point to take away from all this, it's this. Protecting your organization from modern ransomware isn't about buying a single product. It's a constant process. It's about patching, training, testing, and always adapting. It's about building a culture of security, not just a wall of technology. And that really brings us to the final question, one I want you to think about for your own organization.